Hello, this is JRChadwick. NephilimFree has made several videos filled with erroneous information on biology and evolution. I am not a biology major, and Theta Omega has been doing a good job of debunking those videos, so I will leave that area to him. However, if NephilimFree wishes to tread in the realm of cosmology or astronomy, well, then that is more of my forte. Here's one of the comments NephilimFree left me. Did you know that our solar system also defies science? 9 moons in our solar system spin backwards from their planets in contradiction to the empirical scientific law of the conservation of angular momentum. Venus rotates on its side. So does Saturn. Saturn's rings should have been drawn in by gravity billions of years ago, etc. Yup, God surely did do it. Cosmology can't explain it, that's for sure. This illuminates the fact that secular theories do not conform to what is observed. First off, I would like to say that it is extremely naive to imply that the solar system has to exist in a single state, never changing or have changed before. For instance, in 1996, the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 collided with Jupiter, leaving large black scars that were visible for months. Does this mean that the universe did not exist before 1996? Second, NephilimFree claimed that the planets Venus and Saturn rotate on their sides, or 90 degrees. This is completely untrue. I have heard a lot of silly things people have said about astronomy, such as, Jupiter must be the closest planet to the Sun because it's the biggest. I guess I can add these to the list. Let me explain why NephilimFree is wrong. Venus is an anomaly in our solar system due to its backwards rotation. The planet may actually be upside down, and therefore is identified as having an axial tilt of 177.3 degrees. If you just want the reference angle to the plane of our solar system, then Venus is tilted at an angle of 2.7 degrees. Venus was most likely hit billions of years ago by a large object, probably on one of its poles, which literally flipped the planet over. Another possibility is that tidal forces from its dense atmosphere could have slowed down its rotation to its present rate. There is a third possibility. Venus's solar day is almost exactly 1/5 of the time between closest approach of Venus to Earth, suggesting the possibility of Earth's gravitational pull having produced some sort of tidal locking effect on the planet. Saturn has a relatively steep tilt of 26.73 degrees, probably due to the many impacts during its formation, or the gravitational pull of the other planets. Still, clearly not the 90 degrees required to consider this planet to be on its side. As far as the age of Saturn's rings, remember what I said about thinking that the universe must have existed in a perpetual state? Anyway, the age of Saturn's rings has been debunked to death so much that I do not wish to create my own segment doing so.
According to David Harris, writing in Answers in Genesis, scientists say the rings must be young because they haven't been blackened by micrometeoroids. One of my creationist fans, NYClidius or Nuclidius, wrote to say that scientists think the rings are young because they're not well ordered. So let's look at the facts. Astronomers have been puzzling over the rings of Saturn for hundreds of years, and when the Voyager spacecraft got a closer look in the 1970s, the photographs did suggest that the rings were young. The reason was they didn't seem to be covered in enough space dust to be more than 100 million years old. Anyway, the Voyager spacecraft are ancient history. If Answers in Genesis and the creationists who copy from it kept up to date with scientific advances, they'd know that we've discovered a few more things about Saturn's rings in the last 20 or 30 years. Yes, what a surprise, scientific knowledge advances over time as new evidence comes along. Evidence from the most recent probe, Cassini, shows that the rocks that make up the rings are constantly breaking up, coming together again under gravitational attraction, and then breaking apart again. So the space dust question is irrelevant, because dust doesn't easily settle on transient objects. Thanks to this new evidence, a study by the University of Colorado concluded last year that the state of the rings is entirely consistent with their formation at the time of Saturn around 4.5 billion years ago. Even if it weren't, even if they were only formed last week, it makes no difference to the age of our universe, which began around 9 billion years before our solar system was even formed. And it even makes no difference to the age of Saturn. After all, you don't judge the age of a teenager by the age of the pimple on his nose. But let's put this to the test. Here's Saturn, so we rub out the rings and abracadabra, the planet disappears, sort of.
Now Uranus, at about 97 degrees, is the only planet in our solar system to have a near sideways tilt. This was also most likely caused by an asteroid collision, and since the entire Uranus system, that is, its moons and rings, orbit at about the equatorial plane of the planet, this collision most likely occurred early during its formation. This little factoid is something I have known since the 3rd grade. Really, NephilimFree, if the Bible's where you got the information that Venus and Saturn rotate on their sides, and I know you didn't, well, then that just describes the Bible as an inaccurate source of information on astronomy. Now, back to real science. Based on the prograde motion of the rest of the solar system, Uranus and Venus likely began their existence in a similar prograde motion. Sometime during their formation, events occurred which removed or changed their momentum. We do not know for sure where that momentum went, but we have some very good ideas. It is a huge leap to claim that the only explanation is that they were poofed into existence in their current state. Proving a theory wrong does not prove another idea. There are many gaps in our knowledge, and contrary to embarrassingly trying to cover them up, scientists freely admit them and hope to inspire investigations that may someday answer these questions. It has been noted by fake astronomy expert Spike Paris that asteroid impacts are often used to describe aspects of our solar system. And why not? There is plenty of evidence of impacts. Many objects bear the scars of massive impacts in their history, and there are numerous small objects in the asteroid belt, Kuiper belt, and Oort cloud. We see asteroids hit Earth. Ever heard of the Tunguska event? The eccentricities of the planets fit the theory of accretion very well. If you think that the primordial solar system only allowed 8 planets to originally form, then you really do not understand the theory. There were dozens of them. Collisions, large and small, were common. Planets would collide and merge, or the gravitational influence would send them hurtling into the sun. You don't need to take a class in vector calculus to understand why a past collision is not a difficult thing to detect. A quote-unquote perfect solar system would be far stranger and less likely than ours. Now, let's talk about irregular moons. Are they proof of God? Well, why the hell would they be?
Once upon a time, 6,000 years ago, God was busy making the solar system and decided that all planets rotating the same direction was dull. So he flipped over Venus and then decided to toss in a few backwards orbiting moons as a final touch. And it was good.
The real scientific theories are not even that hard to understand. 92 of the 93 irregular moons are small asteroids orbiting far from their home planet. They were captured during a close approach. The most striking feature about them is that they orbit clockwise instead of counterclockwise. Irregular moons are all doomed. The tidal drag is slowing down the rotation of their planet, while each moon will eventually collide with the planet. There is one exception, an irregular moon, if you will. Neptune's moon, Triton, is fairly large, almost as large as our moon. It has a very circular orbit, and is only 355,000 kilometers from Neptune, yet it orbits backwards. How could this happen? Triton is too massive to have been captured normally, and it is impossible to have formed in situ with Neptune like a regular moon, and still have a retrograde orbit. It shares some physical characteristics with Pluto, so it is probably a captured Kuiper belt object. But how did this large body become a partner of Neptune? It was probably the smaller partner of a binary system. This system strayed too close to Neptune, and while Triton was captured, its partner was expelled. Triton has had a significant impact on the Neptune system. All of Neptune's other moons are small, oddly shaped moons with eccentric orbits. Neptune probably had some more regular moons, but they were knocked out of orbit by Triton. While I have demonstrated that there is much we know, there still are a lot of gaps in our knowledge. But something not being understood yet does not prove an idea to be true. So I ask you, why? Why does this prove an instant creation? When real evidence is presented, there are explanations given as to what and why they prove, suggest, propose. So how do irregular moons and oddly tilted planets prove a literal biblical creation? Please give me the line in the Bible which describes Triton. Really, his pitiful statement that Venus and Saturn are sideways only served to prove that NephilimFree cannot even be bothered to type Venus or Saturn into Wikipedia. What I find most interesting about NephilimFree's argument is that it completely contradicts the other creationist claim that our solar system is too orderly to have been formed naturally. Now the fact that it is not perfect proves that it is impossible to have formed naturally. Hypocrisy is thy name, NephilimFree, and you have just destroyed your own argument. Thank you for watching, and once again, my name is JRChadwick.